Welcome back to the Junk Room, everybody. It's me, the Junkman, coming back at you with a new video. So what's the topic today? Ben Cooper Halloween costume. I know you're saying, Junkman, another one? This is the second Halloween costume video, and you talked about Halloween costumes on the action figure show. But don't worry, after Halloween, we'll move on to something else. And don't forget, tonight at 11 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to try to do a live stream where I'll watch, and you'll watch along with me, the Paul Lynde Halloween specials, which is known as one of the worst television specials ever, even voted by many as worse than the holiday special. But we'll see about that, if I can get all the technical stuff worked out, so hopefully we can. As always, if you'd like to support this channel, head over to patreon.com, links in the description below, or become a YouTube member. There you can support the channel and make it better if it can get any better. And as always, if you'd like to get a cool t-shirt, check them out at junkmanmerch.com. I'm gonna put it, I think I pointed here, but I meant to point over there. Oh well. Oh yeah, don't forget the action figure show is now up. Check that out. I think you'll really enjoy that Halloween special. So let's talk more Halloween. Let's talk a mystery. I know you guys love it when I do mystery videos, and I like doing them also. And this one's about the mysterious Spider-Man Halloween costume from Ben Cooper. Now, you should know who Ben Cooper is if you watch my other video. If not, this company made the best Halloween costumes. They started in the 30s and went until the 90s, but between the 70s and 80s, they were the leading Halloween costume maker. And if it was anything pop culture related, music, television, movies, whatever it was, Ben Cooper was there to make it. They had the license to about everything you could think of, especially the superheroes of the time. The three Bs, of course, and others, but they had Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman. And in the 70s, they were huge because you had Batman on television almost daily thanks to the reruns of the 60s television show. Superman was about to start his own movie in the late 70s, and you had Spider-Man coming on every weekend in cartoon form and during the week on the Electric Company. So these three were the huge comic book heroes of the day. And as you can guess, Ben Cooper made a costume of each three and other superheroes. But out of these three, there was one that kind of got his costume very early in the making. And maybe even before he appeared in the comic books. In 1962, Marvel released onto the world a brand new superhero. In Amazing Fantasy's number 15, we got our first look at Spider-Man. For many of us, this wasn't the first time we saw Spider-Man. Ben Cooper had already reached a deal with Marvel about the time the comic came out to have a Spider-Man costume ready by that Halloween. What made this Spider-Man costume the first licensed Marvel Spider-Man merchandise. It hit the stores about a year before anything else Spider-Man related came to stores. Most kids didn't even know who Spider-Man was. The comic book series was just getting started, but the Ben Cooper Spider-Man outfit was hitting stores, giving a lot of kids their first look at the new hero. So that seems like the end of the story. A comic book company comes up with a new hero. To promote it, they reach out to Ben Cooper, the leading person that makes Halloween costumes. They have them in the stores a few months after the comic book. The rest is history, right? Well, not exactly. It seems that this was the second Spider-Man costume to be released by Ben Cooper. And for that first one, we're going to have to go way back. Almost 10 years to 1954. Again, that's almost 10 years before Spider-Man would appear in the Marvel Comics. There, in a 1954 black and white ad, is kids dressed up in their Ben Cooper costumes. One kid striking a spider-like pose, dressed up like Spider-Man. Although you can't tell in the black and white ad, the vinyl smock for the costume was yellow with black spider webs all over it, as was the hood mask. And at the top of that, it read, Spider-Man. Was this some strange coincidence? Two different Spider-Man? Or Spider-Men, I guess. Well, maybe there's more to the story. Stan Lee co-created Spider-Man. I think we all know that. And he says that Spider-Man was based on the pop crime fighter, the Spider, from the 1930s. But who came up with the look of Spider-Man? Stan Lee reached out to Steve Ditko, Marvel artist, to come up with the design of Spider-Man. And it just happens that the Marvel office was about 10 miles away from the Ben Cooper office. Could it be years ago that Steve saw this Ben Cooper costume and it was always locked in his mind to, hey, this looks cool, and maybe when he was given Spider-Man, he thought back to the Spider-Man costume and kind of based the look of Spider-Man on it, although they really don't look that much alike. other than maybe the webbing all over the clothes. Or maybe it was based on someone else's work. Marvel legend Jack Kirby had claimed for years that he came up with the design of Spider-Man. Stan Lee even admits that when he came to designing Spider-Man, he first reached out to Jack, who did 5 pages of Spider-Man, but Stan Lee wasn't happy, and that's when he turned to Steve Ditko. What did Jack Kirby's early design of Spider-Man look like? We really don't know what this design looked like because it's never been released to the public. I'm not even sure if it's still around. And those at Marvel back then all kind of describe something different. So we'll never probably know what the Jack Kirby Spider-Man looked like. Now let's get into rumor. In the early 50s, Jack Kirby was doing freelance work for a lot of different companies. And it's rumored that he did some work for Ben Cooper. Again, this has never been proven. But it could be that Jack Kirby did some early freelance work for Ben Cooper and came up with that Spider-Man look and then reused it for the design of Spider-Man for Stan Lee. No one at Marvel has ever given an answer to this when asked. And Stan Lee himself was even asked back in the 90s, where he had no memory of the Ben Cooper costume or Jack Kirby working on the Spider-Man costume for Ben Cooper. But let's say Marvel did know that the early design of Spider-Man was based on this Ben Cooper outfit. Would they say it? I mean, it could open them up to lawsuits from the Ben Cooper family. So could this costume from 1953 from Ben Cooper be an early prototype design for Spider-Man that we know today? It seems like it's possible. Sadly, in 1989, there was a huge fire at Ben Cooper Incorporated, and most of the records were all lost, so we'll never know officially if Jack Kirby ever worked for Ben Cooper or did any freelance work. His son was asked about this and saying that he don't think his father ever did work for Ben Cooper because he would probably got a free Halloween costume if he did, and he didn't. But if it was freelance work, maybe it was just something he did on the side real quick and didn't get any goodies. But then again, maybe this is some big coincidence. Ben Cooper Corporation came up with a Spider-Man. It was a weird looking costume with spiderwebs on it. Years later, a Spider-Man comic book came out. Costume really doesn't look anything like the Ben Cooper outfit, so who knows? It's a mystery that probably will never be solved. But tell me in the comments what you think. Is this some early Jack Kirby Spider-Man design? Did Steve Ditko see this Ben Cooper costume and take inspiration from it when he started working on Spider-Man in the 60s? I'm leaning toward coincidence, but it's kind of odd that Ben Cooper, who really made costumes based on licensed products like the Disney stuff, or basic ghosts, witch, devils, and stuff like that, why they came up with this Spider-Man costume 10 years before there was a Spider-Man comic book. It seems odd when you look at the other costumes they have. So again, let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you're around tonight, at about 11 o'clock Eastern, come watch along with me the Paul Lynde Halloween special. But if you're watching this video some days later, sorry, maybe you'll watch it next year. Well, until then, until the next video, thumb up so I know you like my content, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk again soon.
Junkman.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.